Ssang Yong Rexton second generation is quite suitable for outings outside the city. Interest in this car is due to the fact that for relatively little money you can get a real frame SUV. To date, the price of a 3-year-old Rexton varies between 750 to 850,000 rubles. The choice is limited to options with XVT and SD diesel engines, AWD and part-time transmissions, an automatic transmission or a 5-speed manual. There are also petrol versions, but their share is much smaller. Few people know how Rexton was born and appeared, where its roots come from, to whom it should be grateful for the appearance and to whom for the filling. At the end of the last century, the Korean brand Ssang Yong decided to produce a large SUV, and in order not to reinvent the wheel, it struck up a relationship with Mercedes-Benz. The Germans took power units, gearboxes, and geometry. Ital Design Studio worked on the exterior and interior. The fruit of the work in 2001 was the Rexton line with licensed gasoline and diesel engines, which has been present almost unchanged in a number of markets, including Russia, for 13 years now. For all the time, the car has experienced 2 upgrades, in 2006 and 2013. 4 years ago, our colleagues from the Buy an Auto magazine already told what you need to be prepared for when choosing a used Rexton II. This time we will summarize the experience gained in practice in operating cars in Russian conditions, including copies of domestic assembly. The first, easily removable proprietary trouble is the destruction of the washer reservoir. It can already leak at 20 to 30,000 kilometers. For a long time, tanks were installed from the factory, which tended to crack in the area of /U200B/U200 attachment to the body from vibrations. If the previous owner has not changed it yet, then it will cost you 2.5 to 3,000 rubles. Branded parts supplied as spare parts are already reinforced in problem areas and carry out their service properly. Also, programmed troubles include sour handbrake cables. Even light off-road with shallow puddles can lead to such a breakdown. Replacing the parking brake cables will cost from 2.5 thousand rubles, and if you need to replace the parking brake pads, be prepared to pay another 3.5 thousand. The owner of this Ssang Yong Rexton clearly doesn't care about the handbrake. Suspension and steering elements in the conditions of the Moscow region do not wear out very rapidly, but by 60,000 kilometers it is often necessary to replace steering tips and rubber bushings of stabilizers and stabilizer struts. Altogether it will cost 4,000 rubles. Do not rule out trouble with the power steering system during cold weather. It breaks the hose at the outlet of the steering rack. The reason for this is the working fluid thickening in the cold, clearly not designed for Russian frosts. There is only one correct way out of this situation: replacing the fluid with a better one from any eminent company, preferably on a synthetic basis. Second generation Ssang Yong Rexton diesel engines are equipped with overrunning alternators, a solution often found on BMW and Mercedes-Benz engines. The clutch allows the massive generator rotor to rotate freely after the engine stops, and also partially hides the uneven operation of the engine, which is designed to extend the life of the generator in the auxiliary drive belt. However, the overrunning clutch itself may require replacement already at 70,000 kilometers. The first symptoms of its failure are the whistling of a slipping or wet belt. Further, tapping is added to this sound, which may be present at idle and disappear at higher ones. This already speaks of the catastrophic wear of the overrunning clutch, and one must be prepared for the fact that the generator will soon cease to perform its functions. The clutch itself on Rexton II will cost 1.5 to 3,000 rubles. At the same time, for preventive purposes, the generator is recommended to be defective and, if necessary, change its bearings. The remains of the Ssang Yong Rexton coupling after disassembly. Particular attention during the operation of the Korean must be paid to the lower ball bearings of the front suspension, in the design of which a kind of time bomb is laid. The fact is that the supports on the Rexton work to brake. In the classic Lada, a similar solution has been spoiling the blood of their owners for 40 years. It is difficult to say what made them resort to such a technical solution on such a heavy machine. However, if you do not catch signs of the imminent death of the ball joint, then the consequences can be very deplorable. When the support is destroyed, the wheel, together with the steering knuckle, breaks, jamming the upper arm and fender and disabling the front-wheel drive. The car loses control, which can cause a serious accident, not to mention the fact that with such a breakdown, Rexton moves only on a tow truck. The first indirect signs of problems with ball joints are steering wheel play. To maintain a straight direction of movement, the position of the steering wheel can change abruptly within 5 to 10 degrees. In addition, when the suspension is rocking, a characteristic metallic creak appears on bumps. In order to prevent ball bearings, it is recommended to change every 30 to 40,000 kilometers or when a torn ball boot is found. The Ssang Yong Rexton ball pin was torn out, and the lever began to grind the rim. If your choice fell on the modification of AWD, then here you also need to remember about the next surprise, in which the car can stand up tightly for no apparent reason at first glance. It will start up and won't even show any errors on the diagnostic scanner. And before that, there was just a slight tapping somewhere in the area of /U200B/U200B driver's right foot when switching the automatic transmission selector. Then boom, the engine is running, the selector is in position D, but the car is not moving. Surely, thoughts about the death of the AKP and expensive repairs will immediately begin to swarm in my head. But you shouldn't grieve much, most likely. The splines were turned in the front-wheel drive cardan, and now the whole moment goes into a broken connection. Usually this trouble comes in the range of 70 to 80,000 kilometers due to the lack of lubrication in the connection. Replacing a cardan will cost 8 to 10,000 rubles, and it would be nice if this did not happen away from home in a store with cardans. If the previous owner was handy or read the forums, then it is possible that the joint, dry from the factory, has already been lubricated, and the described problem will bypass you. Ssang Yong Rexton is also popular among off-road fans, especially SD with part-time transmission. On the Russian market, you can buy kits consisting of longer and stiffer springs and shock absorbers with increased travel, then equip your combat vehicle with 33-inch mud tires and go to conquer forests and swamps. But if somewhere in the front began to tap with the front drive connected, you should be wary. There are frequent cases when, unable to withstand the increased load, the front axle support breaks. The engine sump and front axle begin to meet each other, which ends with the hole and oil leaking from the engine. Honor and praise to you if, in the heat of off-road adrenaline, you revealed this in time. If not, repairing an engine left without oil will not be cheap. Since 2010, this support has been reinforced on Russian-assembled machines, but for harsh operating conditions, the strength of a new part is still not enough and there is only one way out: a welding machine, grinder, and skillful hands. Having lubricated the front cardan, you can go to distant distances on the Ssang Yong Rexton. When buying a used diesel Ssang Yong Rexton, it is worth remembering the high cost of repairing the fuel system. The common rail diesel engine system does not tolerate bad fuel, so we recommend that you refuel only at proven gas stations and change fuel filters on time. From low-quality diesel fuel, accelerated wear of the fuel pump can begin, and as a result, wear products will clog the nozzles. As a result, problems with starting the engine, increased fuel consumption, black smoke, and a drop in power will begin. The design of the motor is such that extracting the injectors without destroying them is unrealistic, requires special equipment, and is generally hardly possible outside the service station, which specializes specifically in repairing diesel engine fuel systems. All problems with the extraction of nozzles arise due to the small gap between the nozzle and the well of the cylinder head, in which corrosion quickly begins to flourish. If the previous owner on the new car did not take care and did not apply a special high-temperature grease to the nozzles, then after 15,000 kilometers you can forget about the problem-free removal of the nozzles. Otherwise, the cost of repairing the fuel system can reach 150 to 170,000 rubles. For a long and happy life with Ssang Yong Rexton, even if not as the first owner, you will need attention to the car both at the stage of selection and during its subsequent operation. Gratitude on his part will be comfort on the roads on long trips, the opportunity to take on a picnic, everything that pleases. The cost of maintaining such a pet is very modest both in terms of fuel and spare parts, and it would be absolutely wonderful to have an entry in the TCP about 149 horses instead of 165, not to understand the logic in the road tax legislation for a simple layman.